Alright, sweet up. I'm meaning to make this video because I wanted to say something. Hopefully your ears work and you can understand things even if they're said very fast and you haven't heard it explained that way. But I'm walking back to my home right now. Obviously, I'm fucking in China. But I just bought this glass. But I wanted to tell you a story because it's been on my mind for a while. I meant to make it earlier today, but so sorry. I was into a few other things like paying my water bill and drinking beer, which is something I like to do. But I want to talk about a man that was in my life, and he was the retired SEAL that I got to spend some time with while I was on recruiting duty in the United States, and I basically augmented what he was doing as a mentor. So there's a few things about him that was significant. He was in his 50s, and even at that age, he could do something like 20-something pull-ups while he was telling people the proper way that you could do a pull-up during the test and what will count, all the way down, all the way up. And, so he was retired. He was responsible for for mentoring the people that were recruited in New England he isn't doing that job anymore, but I met him sometime during 2006 to 2009 when they implemented that program, and he was the guy responsible for New England. He set up an entire system throughout all those states where, I could talk about this for a while, but he basically set it up to where he only had to work half the month. So he went around to all the gyms in New England that had pools and talked to those managers at those gyms and implemented a system to where he had a folder at all those gyms that had pools. So he had a local location for anyone throughout all of New England. They had a pool they could go to at no cost to them. So these would have been people that were recruits in the Navy for 5 different programs: rescue swimmer, SEAL, EO, explosive ordnance disposal, special warfare, combatant crewman, and Navy diver, anyone that had to pass the swim test and boot camp. And he took the time to go around to YMCAs with no problem because they're government funded, so they had to fucking implement it. But he went around to other gyms and talked to them and just went in there, he's retired fucking 20 years as a SEAL in his 50s, went in there, talked to their managers. There's a lot of areas, there's only so many YMCAs. So he went in, any place that had a pool, he went in, took the time, talked to those managers, because he was responsible for, he set it up very intelligently to where he had it lined up that between the 1st and the 15th of the month, he was able to see everyone throughout New England twice at a group thing with everyone across New England at Hanscom Air Force Base with over 200 people that were recruits. They hadn't gone to boot camp yet. They had signed a contract. They were in one of those 5 programs. They would meet at Hanscom Air Force Base, and then he would also travel to all these places where he had set up the gyms for them to meet for personal training with him and maybe 2, 3, 4, 5, or how many other people were in that area. And anyways, he says he was local to me. I was the closest office to where he lived. He lived in Burlington, Vermont. I was in Williston, Vermont. And I got to spend a lot of time with that man. Not every day, but a couple times a week. They implemented this sometime in the first year I was on recruiting duty. So I got to spend a couple years anytime he was available or needed me, or he needed my office, or we would carpool to places. I got to spend some time with that man, and most of the time that I spent with him, I was just listening to him. That's all I was doing. I wasn't talking. I was just there. He wanted to meet with my recruits, or I was bringing my guys in that area to meet with him. And anyways, he had a lot of words of wisdom. He would talk to those guys about anything. I got to experience times where he sat down and talked to people for 4 hours straight. He would go way into it, talk about the training, how much You know, some of these guys, you know, some of the best guys in Special Forces are from New England. But they also have some of these guys interested in the programs. There were younger guys going into it, but they had family members or they had close relatives that had done it, and he would sit down and talk to these guys about anything. And I had a lot of conversations, got the experience, because he wasn't just a guy retired from the SEALs. While he was doing that as the mentor for New England, his son, his own son, was a current operating SEAL. So this guy was not retired from being a SEAL on SEAL Team 6, which is the most, you know, that's the dev group, right? But what was significant about him and why he was so impressive was because he was able to pass that down to his own son. His son was a current operating SEAL while he was the mentor in New England, for anyone that doesn't know that. But he told me a lot about some things. He told me some personal stories. But the one thing that he told me sometime in 2008 or 2007, I was a Navy recruiter from April of 2006 to April 2009 in Vermont. That was my tour, 3 years. I believe it was sometime in 2007. He had a lot of words of wisdom, but there was one thing he said. So in BUDS, a common phrase, any Navy SEAL or anyone that knows anything about it is KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. But Bill Atkinson was his name. He said a phrase one time to me. And maybe he said it several times, but the first time he said it, I mean, this was, you know, I've been thinking about this for 14 years or something. The first time I heard it from him, and he was the first person I heard it from, and I never heard anyone else say it. So it was his. And he said, very simple instructions to complete a complicated task. It's very similar to keep it simple, stupid. But given his expertise, that was his phrase, I guarantee you. WiIliam Atkinson. Very simple instructions to complete a complicated task. And I have thought about that, how to do that for 14 years, at least.